My name is David Coutadeur, and I will present you today the new features of LemonLDAP NG 1.3 version. So to start with, let me present you myself. I work at Linagora for 3 years now, almost 4 years. Sorry. I'm working on LinID solutions, which means identity solutions. So basically, there are 5 solutions. The 2 first solutions are open source solution used to owned and developed by Linagora, and the 3 solutions, the 3 next solutions, are owned and developed by the community. So the first ones are the directory manager, which is a web tool used to manage user applications, users and groups in a directory. And the second one is OpenLDAP Manager, which is a tool, web tool also, used to manage the new format for OpenLDAP configuration. The 3 others, so I'm a member of the LTB team. So LTB is a project used to gather a set of tools used to deal with a directory, around a directory. It includes, for example, special packages for OpenLDAP. I'm also a member of LSC team. So LSC is basically it's a synchronizer for directories or databases. And finally, of course, the LemonLDAP NG, a very well-known product. So the product I will present you today. So let's satisfy your curiosity in depth. So LemonLDAP NG. I just told you that LemonLDAP NG was a WebSSO. So what's a WebSSO? A SSO is single sign-on. So it means that you just have to log on once and for all, and after you can access all the application you want to access without entering any password again. So LemonLDAP is a WebSSO because it can interact with web applications to do SSO. As you can see, there are 3 main components. So the portal is the user visible part of the application, because you can have basically 3 things: the authentication process, sorry, the menu of the application, and the ability for the user to change his password. The second component is the manager. The manager is the component, the web component used to configure the LemonLDAP NG, but it can also explore both the session and the notification databases. And finally, the handler is user invisible part of LemonLDAP, because it's a page agent able to manage access and authorizations, both. So Perl, only Perl, just Perl. As you can see, as you can guess, LemonLDAP NG is a series of Perl modules for Apache. So we'll look in detail about the authentication process. As you can see here, there is a typical distribution of the main components. So the user, the handler, the application, so the web application to protect, the portal, which is the authentication point. There is also the session and the user database. So there is no manager here. So the first thing you can notice is that there is a lot of work done here, but only a few amount of this work is visible for the user. It's like an iceberg, if you know. The user just see some features. So the first element is the connection from the user to the web application. The user doesn't have a WebSSO cookie, so he will be redirected. The request will be cached by the handler. The handler doesn't see the WebSSO cookie, so the user will be redirected to the portal. So he can authenticate. Then, so the user authenticates, for example, which is login and password. And then the portal will check this authentication onto the user database. So if authentication succeeds, the portal will gather some information about the user, and it will use this information to store them into a session database. And the session database answers back to the portal with a session key, which can be used later to access the user session. So at this point, the portal will answer the user with a session key, and more precisely, a WebSSO cookie containing this session key. So the user is now immediately redirected to the web application, and again, the web application, the handler will catch this request, but this time the user has his own cookie. So the handler will get this cookie and use the session key to access the session database. In the session database, it will take some user informations, and so the handler can now do the real working part of the application, which means authorization. If the authorization is granted to the user, then the handler will give the answer to the web application, populating some headers so that the final application will be able to write some information about the user. For example, hello David, you are connected. Then the request is given to the handler, and the handler answers back to the user. So that's all. So now we will see some new features of LemonLDAP. So FastCG portal, and next we'll see 5 new authentication modules. Then the JSON capability to store configuration in JSON format, sorry. And then CAPTCHA, aliases, and CLI new features for LemonLDAP. So we start with CGI. CGI is the actual way to interface applications with web servers, to web servers. And the problem is that when a process is launched, each time a user connects to the site, a process is launched. So there is a loss of performance here. So FastCG can be used to reduce this overhead by using persistent processes. And these processes can be accessed next by either a socket or a TCP connection. So it's useful for 2 components mainly. The manager, it's not very useful because there is no need for real performance here. And secondly, the portal. So the main advantage is, of course, the increases of performance and the scalability, but the scalability is not tested yet. Now the authentication module, Active Directory. So it's like a LDAP module, but indeed, Active Directory is a special module, is a special LDAP. So we have to make sure it is compatible with this authentication. So there are 3 points. The first is that we have to match the schema, the Active Directory schema. So there are some filters, special values. The second point is that we have to be compatible with the user password modification. And the third point is that we have to deal with the reset password on next workflow, on next logon workflow. You can see here when this checkbox is checked, so the user has to modify his password before he can enter. Another authentication module is browser ID. It is an authentication database only. So this means that you cannot use this module to retrieve some information from the users. And you can't also modify your password with this module. There is often Mozilla Personal, a difference between Mozilla Personal and Browser ID, but there is often a confusion about this. So Mozilla Personal is just the implementation of a login distributed system used by using the Browser ID protocol, and especially authentication protocol. So to summarize, the Browser ID protocol is quite similar to OpenID. The main difference is that in Browser ID, the information that holds the identity of the user is the mail, whereas in OpenID, it's a complicated URL. Browser ID is cross-browser, and to sum up the principle of Browser ID, it involves users, relying parties. In this case, relying party can be LemonLDAP, and identity provider. The identity provider being, for example, a Mozilla server. The point is that before a user can authenticate to a relying party, he has to prove its ownership of his preferred email address. And this proof resides in a signed certificate from an identity provider, certifying that certifying the relation between the user from that and a given identity profile from the identity provider's domain. So another module here is WebID. WebID this time is both an authentication and users module. It was invented by a community group at WebSSO, and it relies on the principle of public key WebID. So here is such a URI, public key WebID, https://mywebsite.net /DCO. You can see there are two parts. The main part is the resource, obviously the web server, and the second part is the web ID. So a public key web ID, to sum up, is a URI which uniquely identifies a user by his relation to a public key. The good news is that you may already have one on this public key. For example, by joining one of these social networks, there is automatic generation of what is called FOF data. What is FOF? FOF is friend of a friend. It means that, so what is FOF? To sum up, FOF is a document, RDF XML document, containing the identity of the user. So the identity of the user and his relation with friends. So thanks to this FOF data, URIs can be linked to others, and so can be created a linked web of trust. So to sum up, in LemonLDAP, authentication is made with this certificate and a web ID, and the user's information are taken from this FOF data. Now the Google module, quickly, Google module is an authentication and users module too. The principle is quite simple, in fact. The users log in into Google authentication own method, and then LemonLDAP trusts this authentication thanks to OpenID protocol. Well, just some points about this protocol, OpenID protocol. It involves providers, relying parties, and users. It's a decentralized authentication system based on URLs. So that's the difference. URLs are holding the identity of the users. So each users have to choose one of these URIs from his identity provider. Then the user can choose what data he wants to be accessible from the relying party. Just two points about Google module. There are two specificities. The first one is that the mail must be used as a login name. And secondly, there are only a few attributes you can get from Google module. So country, email, etc. Last one, but not least, Facebook module. So as you may know, Facebook is not so well-known social network. Maybe some of you know it. So it gathers more than 1 billion people, 1 billion users around the world. And the Facebook module can do both authentication and users retrieving. So how does it work? Like Google module, Facebook authorizes other applications like LemonLDAP to reuse the authentication of Facebook, and it does that by the OW2 protocol. So OW2 is just an authorization protocol which will validate the user. So just to point about OW2, it is based on access and refresh token which are shared, which are exchanged between the client application and the resource server. The client application being LemonLDAP and the resource server being Facebook in this example. And so the binding, how does it work? The binding between Facebook and LemonLDAP is done by the exchange of two things, an application ID and a secret you have to get from Facebook. Finally, some more features, JSON file backend configuration. So JSON is a new feature. It means JavaScript object notation. And you can now use JSON format to store the configuration of LemonLDAP. The advantage is quite obvious. The configuration is stored as a more readable way. There is just some point to say that it doesn't provide high availability, so you have to choose one of these systems to provide availability. Just a couple of things to finish. The CAPTCHA features, which can be used at the authentication process. Aliases, which can avoid the duplication of information. And CLI, LemonLDAP Manager, which is just a command line tool able to manage the LemonLDAP configuration. What's next? Just 3 things can be done. Configuration and cache optimization. Some code refactoring with Moose. For those who know, it's a Perl-oriented object framework. And finally, handler modularization. So we can maybe have compatibility with Apache NPM event or Nginx, maybe. So this is quite finished. I'd just like to thank the OW2con organizers, the Linagora company, and of course LemonLDAP and Perl communities. So if you want to stay in touch, here is my contact. Thank you, everyone.